So for lesson 2, there is a good bit of reading. You're reading part of a nonfiction biography. So it's a book somebody has written about somebody's life, but it is true. It tells the story of a real person. So the character we're going to read about, she was real. She was a living person, and the story actually happened. So somebody has researched her life, and they are now writing about it. What we're going to do is it's done in chapters. There's 5 chapters. So I'm going to read a chapter at a time. It's all going to be on the same video. So what I would do is, because after each chapter, it's like chapter 1 and then there's questions, chapter 2 and then there's questions. After each chapter, I would just pause the video, go answer the questions on that chapter, then come back and listen to the next chapter and keep doing that. And if you don't want to listen to me read it, if you want to read it, that's always fine. It's just a lot of reading, so it's going to try and take some of that off of your plate for you. So, we are reading the story Sadako and the 1,000 Paper Cranes. I might be saying her name wrong, but we're going to go with Sadako. Chapter 1, Good Luck Signs. Sadako was born to be a runner. Her mother always said that Sadako had learned to run before she could walk. One morning in August 1954, Sadako ran outside into the street as soon as she was dressed. The morning sun of Japan touched brown highlights in her dark hair. There was not a speck of cloud in the blue sky. It was a good sign. Sadako was always on the lookout for good luck signs. I'm going to pause here really quickly. You're going to want to make sure you read. There's a little bit about the background of this book. Make sure you read that before you listen to me, because it's going to set the tone for you. Back in the house, her sister and 2 brothers were still sleeping on their bed quilts. She poked her big brother, Mashiro. "Get up, lazy bones," she said. "It's peace day." Mashiro groaned and yawned. He wanted to sleep as long as possible, but like most 14-year-old boys, he also loved to eat. When he sniffed the good smell of the bean soup, Mashiro got up. Soon Mitsu and Iji were awake too. Sadako helped Iji get dressed. He was 6, but he sometimes lost a sock or a shirt. Afterwards, Sadako folded the bed quilts. Her sister Mitsu, who was 9, helped put them away in the closet. Rushing like a whirlwind into the kitchen, Sadako cried, "Oh, Mother, I can hardly wait to go to the carnival. Can we please hurry with breakfast?" Her mother was busily slicing pickled radishes to serve with the rice and soup. She looked sternly at Sadako. "You are 11 years old and should know better," she scolded. "You must not call it a carnival. Every year on August 6th, we remember those who died when the atom bomb was dropped on our city. It is a memorial day." Mr. Sasaki came in from the back porch. "That's right," he said. "Sadako-chan, you must show respect. Your own grandmother was killed that awful day." "But I do respect Oba-chan," Sadako said. "I pray for her spirit every morning. It's just that I'm so happy today." "As a matter of fact, it's time for our prayers now," her father said. The Sasaki family gathered around the little altar shelf. Sadako quickly bowed her head. She fidgeted and wriggled her bare toes while Mr. Sasaki spoke. He prayed that the spirits of their ancestors were happy and peaceful. He gave thanks for his barber shop. He gave thanks for his fine children. And he prayed that his family would be protected from the atom bomb disease called leukemia. Many still died from this disease, even though the atom bomb had been dropped on Hiroshima 9 years before. It had filled the air with radiation, a kind of poison that stayed inside people for a long time. So you're going to want to pause. That's the end of chapter 1. Answer your chapter 1 questions, and then come back to the video. Chapter 2, Peace Day. Sadako ran ahead to the house of her best friend, Chizuko. The 2 had been best friends since kindergarten. Sadako was sure that they would always be close as 2 pine needles on the same twig. At the entrance to the Peace Park, people filed through the memorial building in silence. On the walls were photographs of the dead and dying in a ruined city. The atom bomb, the thunderbolt, had turned Hiroshima into a desert. Sadako didn't want to look at the frightening pictures. She held tight to Chizuko's hand and walked quickly through the building. "I remember the thunderbolt," Sadako whispered to her friend. "There was a flash of a million suns. Then the heat prickled my eyes like needles." "How can you possibly remember anything?" Chizuko exclaimed. "You were only a baby then." Well, I do, Sadako said stubbornly. When the ceremonies were over, Sadako led the others straight to the old lady who sold cotton candy. It tasted even better this year. The day passed too quickly, as it always did. The best part, Sadako thought, was looking at all the things to buy and smelling the good food. There were stalls selling everything from bean cakes to chirping crickets. The worst part was seeing people with ugly whitish scars. The atom bomb had burned them so badly they no longer looked human. If any of the bomb victims came near Sadako, she turned quickly away. That's the end of chapter 2, so you can pause, answer your questions, and come back. Chapter 3, Sadako's Secret. Sadako is a very strong runner and was chosen to be on the relay team. If her team won, she would be able to join the running team in junior high school the next year. From then on, Sadako thought of only one thing, the relay race. She practiced every day at school and often ran all the way home. When Mashiro timed her with Mr. Sasaki's big watch, Sadako's speed surprised everyone. Maybe, she dreamed, I will be the best runner in the whole school. Just do your best, Mr. Sasaki said, giving Sadako's hand a squeeze. We'll be proud of you. The kind words from her parents made the knot in Sadako's stomach loosen. They love me no matter what, she thought. At the signal to start, Sadako forgot everything but the race. When it was her turn, she ran with all the strength she had. Sadako's heart was still thumping painfully against her ribs when the race was over. It was then she first felt strange and dizzy. She scarcely heard someone cry, "Your team won!" The bamboo class surrounded Sadako, cheering and shouting. She shook her head a few times and the dizziness went away. All winter, Sadako tried to improve her running speed. To qualify for the racing team in junior high, she would have to practice every day. Sometimes, after a long run, the dizziness returned. Sadako decided not to tell her family about it. She tried to convince herself that it meant nothing, that the dizziness would go away. But it didn't. It got worse. Frightened, Sadako carried the secret inside of her. She didn't even tell Chizuko, her best friend. On New Year's Eve, Sadako hoped she could magically wish away the dizzy spells. How perfect everything would be if she didn't have this secret. Amidst throngs of happy people, Sadako forgot her secret for a while. She let the bright joy of the season wash her worries away. At the end of the day, she raced Mashiro home and won easily. Above the door were the good luck symbols Mr. Sasaki had put there to protect them during the new year. With a beginning like this, how could anything bad happen? So go ahead and pause, answer. There's 3 questions, and then come back for chapter 4. Chapter 4, A Secret No Longer. For several weeks, it seemed that the prayers and good luck symbols had done their work well. Sadako felt strong and healthy as she ran longer and faster. But all that ended one crisp, cold winter day in February. Sadako was running in the schoolyard. Suddenly, everything seemed to whirl around her, and she sank to the ground. One of the teachers rushed over to help. I guess I'm just tired, Sadako said in a weak voice. When she tried to stand up, her legs went wobbly and she fell down again. The teacher sent Mitsu home to tell Mr. Sasaki. He left his barber shop and took Sadako to the Red Cross hospital. As they entered the building, Sadako felt a pang of fear. Part of this hospital was especially for those with the atom bomb sickness. In a few minutes, Sadako was in an examination room where a nurse x-rayed her chest and took some of her blood. Dr. Numata tapped her back and asked a lot of questions. 3 other doctors came in to look at Sadako. One of them shook his head and gently stroked her hair. By now, the rest of Sadako's family was at the hospital. Her parents were in the doctor's office. Sadako could hear the murmur of their voices. Once her mother cried, "Leukemia, but that's impossible." At the sound of that frightening word, Sadako put her hands over her ears. She did not want to hear any more. Of course she didn't have leukemia. Why, the atom bomb hadn't even scratched her. "Do I really have the atom bomb disease?" Sadako asked her father. There was a troubled look in Mr. Sasaki's eyes, but he only said, "The doctors want to make some tests, that's all." He paused, then he added, "They might keep you here for a few weeks." A few weeks? To Sadako, it sounded like years. She would miss graduation into junior high school, and even worse, she would not be a part of the racing team. Sadako swallowed hard and tried not to cry. Go ahead and pause there. Come back for chapter 5. Chapter 5, The Golden Crane. That afternoon, Chiziku was Sadako's first visitor. She smiled mysteriously as she held something behind her back. "Shut your eyes," she said. While Sadako squinted her eyes tightly shut, Chizuko pulled some pieces of paper and scissors on the bed. "Now you can look," she said. "What is it?" Sadako asked, staring at the paper. Chizuko was pleased with herself. "I figured out a way for you to get well," she said proudly. "Watch." She cut a piece of gold paper into a large square. In a short time, she had folded it over and over into a beautiful crane. Sadako was puzzled. "But how can that paper bird make me well?" "Don't you remember the old story about the cranes?" Chizuko asked. "It's supposed to live for 1,000 years. If a sick person folds 1,000 paper cranes, the gods will grant her wish and make her healthy again." She handed the crane to Sadako. "Here's your first one." Sadako began learning how to fold paper cranes. At first, her fingers are clumsy and her cranes do not come out as pretty as the one made by Chizuko. But the more she practices, the easier it becomes. By the time her brother comes to visit her that afternoon, she has completed enough for him to hang them from the ceiling. He promises to hang every one she makes from the ceiling. With each new paper crane Sadako makes, she wishes to get better. Sadako befriends another child with leukemia at the hospital. His name is Kenji, and he is 9 years old. Sadly, his parents have both passed away. Only one relative visits him once a week. Sadako tries to cheer him up and make a paper crane just for him. He too passes away very soon. Sadako is saddened but remains committed to making the 1,000 paper cranes. She is now up to 464. Sadako's condition worsens in July. She has a difficult time eating because of her swollen gums. Her mother brings her all of her favorite foods to eat, but she cannot finish eating it. Feeling guilty about her mother spending money on expensive food, Sadako gets frustrated. Her mother comforts and encourages her. Sadako's classmates send her a kokoshi wooden doll to cheer her up. She places the special doll next to the golden crane, the crane made by Chizuko. Later, Mashiro comes to visit her. His present calms her and she feels happier. Sadako's condition suddenly becomes better and she is allowed to go home. While at home, she gets a steady stream of visitors and well-wishers. However, by the end of the week, Sadako is weak, pale, and tired again. She has to return to the hospital, but this time Sadako welcomes the quietness of the hospital room. As she becomes weaker, Sadako glances often at the golden crane. The golden crane reminds Sadako that there is always hope. One day, her mother presents Sadako with a special gift. It's a beautiful silk kimono with cherry blossoms on it. Sadako is overcome with emotions, knowing such a gift was very expensive. Her father gently tells her that the kimono was lovingly sewn together by her mother. She puts it on the beautiful kimono. Grateful the kimono hides her swollen legs, she wears the kimono with pride. Chizuko comes to visit her and sees her best friend in her beautiful kimono. And after her family and best friend leaves, Sadako has only enough strength to make one more paper crane. 644. And now we're going to read the epilogue. It's what comes after, like the story's over. Sadako Sasaki died on October 25th, 1955. Her classmates folded 356 cranes so that 1,000 were buried with Sadako. In a way, she got her wish. She will live on in the heart of people for a long time. After the funeral, the bamboo class, the name of her class, collected Sadako's letters and published them in a book. They called it Kokoshi after the doll they had given to Sadako while she was in the hospital. The book was sent around Japan and soon everyone knew about Sadako and her 1,000 paper cranes. Sadako's friends began dreaming of building a monument for her and all children who were killed by the atom bomb. Young people throughout the country helped collect money for the project. Finally, their dream came true. In 1958, the statue was unveiled in the Hiroshima Peace Park. There is Sadako standing on top of a granite mountain of paradise. She is holding a golden crane in her outstretched hands. A folded crane club was organized in her honor. Members still place thousands of paper cranes beneath Sadako's statue on August 6th, Peace Day. They make a wish too. Their wish is engraved on the base of the statue. This is our cry, this is our prayer, peace in the world. And that is the end of the reading. You will have a few more questions to answer, so don't forget to do those.